Are we paying these people to front up, or are we paying them to fly to Wellington to eat their lunch? Should you really lose your career for refusing to take part in a 90-minute lesson about Māori culture? This government doesn't actually have any idea how to get economic growth. Show us what you made of, Prime Minister.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Okay, Brad, nice to see you. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Duncan, for having me.
And thank you for supporting us. Thank you for partnering up and backing us. Appreciate it, mate. Awesome.
Yep. No, awesome.
Tell people what people have asked me. What do they do? What do Brothers Green do?
So basically, we're a health supplement company based in Christchurch, and we make health supplements from locally grown hemp, and we turn it into basically functional supplements focused on mainly digest, joint health, and sleep. So
Right.
New Zealand product, New Zealand grown, and all natural, and just really trying to, I guess, address most of the major, lifestyle-related conditions that we see in New Zealand.
And, we've seen so many of them just emerge in the last 20, 30 years with processed food, with everything else that, life stresses. Why hemp? What is the product hemp? What's the natural qualities in there, and what does it provide?
Well, first of all, we use all hemp seed, so that's where we get, and in New Zealand, because of the regulations, that's the only part of the plant we can use for human ingestion. But
Legally
at the moment, and whether or not that's that's logical is to be debated. But we take the oil as our cold press. We cold press it down in our factory, and that's very high in phytonutrients, omega-3, omega-6, GLA, which is highly anti-inflammatory.
Yep.
And we combine that with a bunch of terpenes, and that's our joint health product.
Yep.
And then you've got the meal that we produce from pressing that oil is very high in protein, so it's about 40 to 50% protein, extremely high in fibre, magnesium, iron and zinc.
Yep.
And we combine that with L-glutamine, turmeric, a range of other key ingredients, and that's basically focused on our digest product.
Yep. That's the one I've been using.
Yep, that's the one you've been
Yes.
using.
So I personally, when I had that for the first time, felt really clear. I felt this clarity. I felt, I was at my desk. Well,
I think most people realise that we're not actually doing much good for our gut most of the time, between coffee, alcohol, and processed food and all the rest of it. So
we're killing it, aren't we?
Anything we can put back in that's going to help and that's what we're here for. It's like we're not asking people to be saints, but it's like about balance. If you're going to go out and have a big night, or you're going to go and enjoy yourself out with the weekend,
and that happens. That's almost life, right?
Exactly, that is life. But it is about finding that balance. And in this country, 60% of our healthcare costs are associated with lifestyle-related diseases. 60%.
Yeah.
$17.5 billion New Zealand spends a year on lifestyle-related conditions.
That's more than the education system.
Exactly.
Okay, so $17 billion.
Yep.
Our education system, all up, everything.
Yep.
$16 billion.
Yep. And
so how's that?
Do you know the other scary fact? How much do you think, if the annual rate of healthcare costs increases at the same rate, we're going to be spending a year in New Zealand by 2050.
Yep, I've just looked at some of those numbers.
$130 billion.
Yeah, I know.
By 2050.
And we can't afford that, so we won't be spending it, so you won't get the services.
No. So you're either going to give up your welfare system goes, education goes, or you raise taxes.
That's almost the size of our GDP as it is.
Yeah, exactly.
And
it's
close.
So basically, we're in a trajectory where we need to change something. We cannot afford to have our population getting sicker and sicker every year. We're going to see a 60%, 70% increase in over 65s by 2050.
Yeah, I know. And this is the ageing population. This is me. And this is happening. So how do we stop us going to hospital? Because you need to stop us before we get there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make people, trying to get people to think about, we've got this tiered healthcare system. You've got the general population, you've got people going into the GPs and getting medication, then you've got people on long-term medication, going in for surgeries and things like that, and you've got your intensive care, and then that's it. What we need to do is stop people falling into that GP bucket.
But the truth is they don't get there now. The truth is you can sit on a waiting list for 2-3 years, then get dumped off it.
Yeah. So you imagine what's going to happen when 60% more people are over 65 and you're waiting for a hip replacement. Instead of waiting 2 years, you're going to wait 3 or 4 or 5 years.
Well, you might die waiting.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what sort of feedback do you get with some of your products? I mean, I've certainly given you what I think of the gut stuff, which I think is excellent. The joint stuff for your joint movements and joint support, that's got to be crucial because so many of, ex-rugby players, ex-soccer players, cricket, all these guys who have had physical lives suddenly get to 50, 60, 40 even and go, I'm hurting. This is where you guys come in.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's been our, 60 to 70% of our sales are for our joint health product. And for example, I just went and did testimonial yesterday for a guy. He's 60. He's been surfing his whole life. He was a pro surfer. About 18 months ago, he started waking up. He had really bad hip pain.
Yep.
Every time he'd put on his shoes, he'd have a stabbing pain in his hip. And he was like, I don't want to give up surfing. That's his quality of life. He went into the doctor. The doctor gave him an MRI, all the scans, said, you're going to need a hip replacement pretty soon. And he's like, and then to get to be valid for a hip replacement, he said basically he's got to have to hobble into the doctor before they'll give him a hip replacement, right? He's started our product. I've got nothing to lose, $60 or whatever. After about 3 months, realised he's woken up. He's got no more hip pain in his back, and he's back surfing. He doesn't have to worry about it. He reckons he's going to need a hip. He might not.
So you've met him. You've been and seen him, and
we did a testimonial yesterday.
Wow, I love to hear that.
Yeah. So up in Auckland. So, and I mean those stories are just repeated over and over. You go and look at our reviews. I think we've got 2,500 5-star reviews now on the website.
I've started to see it in this podcast now when I get the comments through. I'm talking about something totally different to what you guys do, but someone comes in and goes, "I use their products. They're great. I know these guys."
Yeah.
So I'm starting to see that emerge, and this is great.
And it's so good, and and these guys are skeptical. And anything on the internet now, you've got to be skeptical about what you're doing. But I think, the fact that these guys are skeptical, they're using our product and they're actually finding benefits is, these aren't people who want it to work. These are almost like, nah, it's not going to work. It's a natural product. It's sold on the internet or whatever. But I think, especially coming on a show like this, you add the credibility to say like, hey, look, if you're using it, you're backing us. It's like, well, there's no reason people shouldn't at least try it. And that's all we're asking.
If you go, and that's right. And look, if it didn't work for me when with the clarity, and my awareness and my, I just felt good. If it didn't, I'll tell you right now.
Exactly.
So I'm not here to bullshit. But the thing is, when you go into a shop, right, and even supermarkets these days, there are so many health products. Like I go after I met you guys, I went down to the supermarket and had a look at what's there. Like it actually blows your mind, and you don't know what to do and what's believable and what's not. All these promises, and why are you guys any different to what I see on the shelves? And I don't know if they work or not.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for us, the big shift for us has been really going direct to the customer through social media, through that digital marketing and the internet, because we can actually talk directly with the customer. We can communicate with them. We know who they are. If they've got any questions or concerns, they come directly to us. On a supermarket shelf, we've been in there, mate, and it doesn't. Do
you know what I mean?
Terrible,
Yeah.
And it's like, how are you? You don't even know who's buying your product. You've got no way of interacting with them. It's a very faceless, very impersonal kind of way of selling.
It's cold. Yeah.
People know. You see me on Facebook and you know who I am.
Yeah.
Like you can.
And so you stand behind your product, right?
Absolutely,
and
100%.
So if there's a problem, if someone's got a problem, they go straight to you.
Yep.
And you endorse it, you back it, you say, "Here I am."
Yep. And my reputation is, along with our company, is on the line.
Yeah. I rate that.
And social media, I think, in a lot of ways, as much as there's a lot of crap on there, it's also a very good disinfectant, because if you post a crap product, very quickly you're going to get hundreds of people who haven't been delivered product or it doesn't work, going to climb into you, and you'll know about it.
Now, what I like about you guys and what I like about our combination, our partnership, is that if someone's got a problem with this podcast, they come to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm the producer.
Yes, exactly.
Like, you want to get hold of me, get hold of me.
Yeah.
And if we're going to have a scrap over, we'll scrap over it. And if I say something that I actually look back and say, oh shit, I actually went too far. I was wrong. I'll tell that person and I'll say it down the barrel. There's no shame in that. That's honesty. So that's what I like about you guys as well. You're right here.
Yeah.
Like, you're not dealing with some American firm that's so far away in corporate land you don't even know if they exist.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many of those brands that are faceless now, and I think that adding that trust and credibility for it. And the other thing is like, I think when you look at where hemp has come from and what we're trying to do, there's a whole nother angle, which is the benefit to our farmers and our agricultural sector, and that's another part, that was the main reason I really got into it in the first place.
Yeah, why did you get into it? So what's the background of, why hemp? Why you?
Yeah, well, I guess initially it all started, I was down in South End sort of playing footy, had a shoulder injury, came back up, had surgery. Basically, I was on trammies and anti-inflammatories for about 8 weeks. Felt like an absolute zombie. Absolutely hated the experience.
Yeah.
Woke up, 2 months later, being like, "Why am I still feeling like I want to take tramadol?" I'm like, "This is not,
I know the tramadol. I've had some of it. It is heavy. It is a killer.
It's heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And then basically after that, I was like, "All right, that was a terrible experience." Sort of got through that, back to work, and then. Had my second, and basically went back to playing footy down at Lincoln University.
Yeah.
Second last game of the season, dislocated my shoulder, same injury, needed the same surgery.
Yep.
And I was basically at the point I was like, I didn't want to go through that repeat surgery recovery process. I was like, nah, that was horrific.
You feared it that much because the first time.
Like, nah, that's terrible. And I was like, right, what can I do to make that experience not so difficult? And I think the biggest thing I learned was what we put in our body is just so critically important to our recovery. And I went from having 8 weeks of basically zombie on the couch to basically change my diet. I was out of hospital and back at work 3 days later, didn't take any painkillers or anything like that. And just the difference in like
productivity
how I felt,
and how you feel in your life,
just how
your mood,
your clarity, how you feel physically in your body, and it just goes to show like what we're putting in our body is either helping or hindering us.
And we haven't thought about this enough. We care about all these people fuss around with their car or their house, whatever. What about your temple?
Yeah, exactly.
What about what you are? You're a machine or you're not.
Yeah, this is. I reckon this is the number one issue in New Zealand. Like if we are staring down the barrel of basically a health crisis in this country, and if nothing's done and the trajectory keeps going,
nothing is being done.
Nothing is being done. You know, there's no long-term New Zealand plan.
Yeah.
Where are we heading in this whole thing? And we're spending how much percent of our GDP on healthcare?
Well, I've just looked at this. I've just looked at this because the Treasury put out this long-term report 2 days ago, and our health system is the one that will suffer the most because it's the one we can put all the money into. So we won't have the money, so we won't get the treatments, and all we're going to get now is this repeat of the system that's already failing. Look at it. And we wait till people get diabetes, and then we treat them.
Yes.
Too late.
And we're basically saying 60% of that cost is associated with conditions that don't have to exist.
Yeah.
You know, it's not accidents, it's not genetic disorders, it's not all of this. This is purely people's lifestyles creating these chronic conditions and putting them in the healthcare system. And we've got it's like this is a pretty bad thing that's going on. All the ongoing effects.
We're idiots.
For every probably dollar it costs the healthcare system, there's probably another copper dollars it costs us in
easy
unproductivity, economic impact.
It's actually more than that. It's actually billions of dollars in lack of. You ask ACC, you ask all these agencies that are tasked with getting you back to work, and they can't get people back to work.
Yep.
Well, if they'd taken that stuff beforehand, if they'd taken that advice or whatever beforehand, they'd be at work.
Exactly. And then the other thing is the quality of life that we can, if people take a product and they get, like this guy, he's not going to stop surfing. That's him keeping active.
Yeah.
It's him keeping his mental health in check. He's looking after he's out with his friends, all the rest of it. How many people in New Zealand are sitting there in pain all day with conditions that they don't know how to manage properly, that if they took a product like ours, and it doesn't even have to be our product.
Just try it. Just try it.
Anything that's going to mean that you can get out and be active is going to be beneficial.
But the challenge here is maybe try your product. So but seriously, try it.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work for that person, it doesn't work for that person.
Exactly. And we have a money back guarantee, so if it doesn't work, we'll give you money back.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And DG20 will give you 20% off as well. That's the code, okay? Yep. Don't forget that one. But that's the thing. We and I believe in getting out of the house and moving. Is your mental health. So if you can't move and you can't leave your house, then that's a link to your mental health. Physical activity is seriously linked to your mental state.
Yeah.
And we haven't thought about that until now, really.
And I just don't think we've ever had to deal with the fact that people can't move. It's never been in history. Only in the last 30 years has it really been an issue. Like, up until the 70s, 60s, and 70s, like there wasn't a thing for people to be incredibly too heavy or too much in pain to not be
moving.
Look at
America.
It's such a small portion of the population.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Now we're saying, well, I don't know, 35% of adults.
Well, we give them options.
Yeah.
We put them in wheelchairs, or we give them something to, these units to help them move.
Yeah.
Now, 30 years ago, you were left behind. You had to get on with it. But it's true, though. But we now have a whole industry of this, which supports people not moving.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the disincentive for this to happen, like you've got this complex which is reliant on more and more people getting sick and sick, and it's like how do we shift that whole incentive for people to get actually healthy? It's like we almost reward people for being sick.
Yeah, no, we do.
How do we reward the people who are putting the work in and staying healthy? I
agree. I've been involved in the Butterbeans movement for a long time, and we get the really big, 300-400 kilo people, and for a start, the fact that they're willing to try to start moving again is they're halfway there, right? But it's so hard because they've gone so far down that path. But the ones that we get, their ability to we've got one guy who's lost 200 kgs, and he's in the boxing ring at 130. He was a prop. Played for Ponsonby. He blew out to 300 kgs. He's down to about 180, 120 now. He's lost 180. It's remarkable, and you don't recognise him.
No, exactly. And imagine how much better he is contributing to his family. He might be back at work. He's going to be
totally back
better.
at work.
He's feeling better.
He's talking to people again.
Yeah, exactly.
Because when people lose themselves, they don't want to face people, you know.
No.
Why? And are you? People will say to me, "Are you a doctor? Are you have medical specialist? Do you have any science? Do you have any of that sort of background?"
No, I mean my background was basically sort of like, I guess, I was a rural banker. That was initially what I was doing. So I think initially,
that couldn't be further different to
exactly. But I think from my perspective, originally it was very much I saw the potential for our farmers and agriculture in New Zealand to get into something that had provided a significant amount of value. It got away from a lot of the regulation that's coming down on farmers around water use, chemical use, fencing off waterways, all of this sort of stuff. And then that was sort of my initial thing. And then going through my own health experience was enough for me to become aware of, like, my business partner, he was a pharmacist as well, so he was seeing this in the pharmacy of people coming in and just like more medication, and there's no off ramp, Well,
I had a bit of an issue this year when I was in hospital, and I got these antibiotics, and they changed them halfway through, and I just stopped them because I felt so terrible, and I haven't taken medicated, prescribed medicine since, because that's all they offer you.
Yeah, exactly, and like my partner. We've just had a baby, 4.5 months old, and she's gone into, she had a bit of a, irregular bleeding, and then the doctor was just like, "Oh, you need to go back on the pill." I'm like, are you seriously telling me that's the answer to what we're dealing with? And it's like,
God, it's all prescribed in their training and everything, isn't it? It's all linked back to Big Pharma.
Yeah, and it's like, how do we? Say, for example, if 60% of our GP visits are associated with lifestyle-related diseases, if we could cut that by 20-30%, how much longer would our GPs and nurses be able to spend with patients and actually be able to...
They talk about this all the time.
We're dealing with, you hear about it all the time, the healthcare system's under pressure,
Yeah.
The best thing we can do is not be sick.
As a country. Is not having to go on a waiting list or having to go to the GP. The GPs talk about that, and if we could have something before the primary system...
Yes.
Then we're out of trouble.
Exactly, and that's what we want to do. We want to provide, I guess, a platform, raise the awareness of there's things that you can do to stop you falling into that GP bucket.
Yeah.
And if anyone wants to do anything for the healthcare system, the number one thing you can do is not get sick.
Yeah. Well, I can suggest to you and your partner, if you're having babies is the issue, maybe get a TV. There's some good deals on I always say that to mates with 3 or 4 kids. We'll get a TV, mate. The guy with 10 kids, give him a movie ticket.
We actually got a jolly jumper. That's actually been the best thing.
No, brilliant.
Mate, you can just lock them in there and they can't go anywhere.
They've still got them, eh?
Yeah. Oh, mate, that is a...
make sure they're nicely attached and then boing when you go over there. They're having a great time, and you can finally have your watch your rugby or whatever.
I'm just waiting for them to be able to go sleep in there. That would be the best.
It's the hardest thing in life, isn't it?
Yeah.
Being a parent
is.
That's the hardest
it's amazing.
Thing. It is amazing.
That's why we're here.
In fact, our daughter had colic. Our first daughter had colic, and doctors tried everything. In the end, we went down the herbal route, and it worked.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I think we had some lavender product or something, and it soothed. Do you how you've just launched in Sydney?
Yep. So we just set up a store.
That's exciting, eh?
Yeah, very exciting. So we've been marketing into Sydney or marketing into Australia for the last sort of, I guess, probably 12 months, and we've really started gaining some traction the last couple of months. And we were like, one of the reasons that I think we've been able to grow like we have here in New Zealand is the fact that I go and talk to garden clubs, I go and talk to U3As, go and talk to bowls clubs, whoever, and really try and get in at that grassroots level.
You sound like a podcaster.
Yeah.
I do this. It's true.
Yeah.
I've speak anyone from 88 through to 16 in recent days.
Yeah, and I think for me, it seems like it can seem like a lot of work, but those people become your avid fans. They've heard you speak, they've heard what you're trying to do, they've heard the whole story. They're your cheerleaders, and I think for us when you go. We're trying to take, obviously this brand and what we're trying to do into Australia as well. And I think being on the ground in Sydney, me and my partner are going to move there in February.
Yep.
And, we want to go and start talking to these people because they're dealing with this. This is a Western world problem.
Yeah.
All global.
And you'll find it's bigger an issue in Sydney, although they do they're good in the outdoors.
They are. I think they've got a much better comfort culture. If you get up in the morning, it's 25 degrees at 5 o'clock. It's much more inviting to go out and have a coffee and go for a run than it is 6 degrees in Christchurch with.
I think you'll take off over there. I think you'll take off over there.
Hopefully.
I think it's I like your positive approach to it. I like it that you're not you don't come in a sort of nerdy medicinal drug company type approach. I quite like the fit. I quite like what you guys stand for. How do people get hold of you? What's the best way they can? If people are listening to this and they want to get some of your product or try it, what are the products? How do they get hold of you? What's the deal?
Yeah, so just go visit thebrothersgreen.co. That's our website, or you can Google The Brothers Green, will come up. And I think, for anyone who is dealing with, particularly around joint health, any kind of joint issues, I would really encourage you to go and try a joint support product.
Yeah.
The number of customers who are coming back and experiencing feedback, you need to give it sort of at least most people experience results in sort of at least 30 to 60 days.
Good, eh?
And then and then so many people came back as well. So if you're dealing with that, I think it's well worth trying. And then you've got our digest products. So anyone with bloating, indigestion, kind of like irritable bowel, anything like that, well worth trying. That's high protein, high fibre, L-glutamine, turmeric, all these good things for your gut. And that's very simple to take. It's just basically 2 teaspoons in a glass of milk or whatever.
I've done that. I think I want to put 3 in. Maybe that's why I got the clarity. But but I put it in, and so I'm stirring it, as you say, stir it, and then you drink it at the bottom. You still got all that goodness down there. So
Make sure.
So that's dark, and I go again. But you go walk down the road, and this is my challenge to anyone listening and watching this, is that you have a look at the numbers of people that, and I'm one of these people that has got a slight limp or is sort of wincing, and I've moved house this week, and I've been driving a truck and in and out of a truck and up and down, and I'm feeling it. I'm really feeling it. And so these are the people you're talking to, right?
Exactly.
It's every day. You don't have to have played sport.
No.
You can have been in the same workshop or on a bit of machinery all your life, whatever, and you favour one side because you're sore. You don't have to live that life.
No, you don't have to live that life. And like the other testimony we did yesterday, he's a tradie, and it was just his hands.
Yeah.
He just worked his whole life with his hands. His hands are stiff. He had big sort of basically sort of not calluses, but the joints were inflamed basically. And he started taking it. He's probably one of our best customers. He's been taking it for a couple of years now. And all the lumps in his hands shrunk down, and he's like, look, I'm in and out of a forklift all day. I'm dealing with my hands. He's like, you can imagine. He's like, I just don't have that same pain, and I can use my hands like I used to.
We should get some of these guys into the studio.
Yeah, 100%.
Before Christmas, before the end of the year, because I'd like to meet some of them and hear let's get them on and hear some of the testimony. My mate's a farmer up north in the Hokianga, been a farmer since he's 14. His dad died and he got taken on the farm, and he's had a dicky hip, and he's tried all sorts of things through the health system, didn't work. He tried some natural products and yoga, and for quite some time it worked really well. And then I think he came off that. He's back to being sore again. So I'll give him some of your products.
Yeah, perfect.
But you must like giving the testimony, because that makes it all worth it, right?
Exactly. And at the end of the day, trying to start a business is so hard. Like we have been through the ringer. Like COVID just about destroyed us. We've been into supermarkets. We had a big deal with Green Cross Health, and that fell over. And so we've experienced, I think, just about the worst type of, went through the biggest black swan event you could ever go through.
Pisses me off hearing this, because it is so hard to do what you've done in New Zealand.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be. And I think, we've got this, ridiculous culture where, basically young businesses, it is just so difficult for young people. The amount of businesses that we started off with, we started sort of our business in sort of 2018, that have started then and have fallen over. And it's so difficult to do that now, because you think of the cost of rent, you think of the cost of living, the risk that it takes for you to go out and start your own business.
I admire you. Yep.
And then, one of the best things, my partner, she had her own business. One of the best things, she got on this program, which was from MSD, which was they funded basically, $600 a week for living costs for 6 months and a bit of a grant at the start. And I'm like, that should be available to anyone who wants to start a business. It's really
an interesting point. This podcast is a business now, right? Okay. And MediaWorks has been so supportive in helping me set this up. And without them, I wouldn't have been able to do this, right? And without you now supporting us, it wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
So every business needs to share their story as well, because the central government's got no idea. They get this big load of taxpayers' money every year that they usually squander. This is hard doing this stuff from the ground up. There's no one to turn to.
No, and this is what it should be encouraged for people to get into this.
Capital's everything. Capital's everything.
Why is it made so difficult for young people or anyone wanting to get into business to get? And this is where these great companies come from.
Yeah, I know.
And all these companies, they have to go offshore, or they never happen. And nowadays with social media, and you think all these young kids, these guys know They know how to market.
Oh, they're miles
They
ahead.
know what products are coming out. They
Yeah.
know what they should be doing. All they need is the runway to actually bring these.
They
stuff
need
to market.
capital. Like capital is
Yes.
from all the work I've done in this space, in terms of business. Capital is your crucial thing. So you need some money to set up. You need the confidence that you've got that money. Now, 80% of businesses fall over within 2 years because they don't have that runway
Cash
of
flow.
cash.
Yep.
Cash.
Yep, exactly.
If you've got some cash to get you there, that's why I love startups. You know, I think it's exciting what you've done, you know, and you deserve every success. Do you feel like you're starting to get your head above water?
Yep, definitely. I mean, we're now doing sort of anywhere from 4,000 to 5,000 orders a month between here and Australia, and you know, I think now, you know, alongside, you know, this podcast and what we do on Facebook and social media, I feel like, you know, we've found our groove and the strategy that works for us in terms of growing. And I think the other thing that happens with, you know, what we're trying to do and the type of results we're seeing, particularly with the testimonials and stuff like that, is that snowballs. You know, you have all these people, you know, and, you know, it's like, you know, how many people are you going to go and talk about it? And it's funny, my father-in-law was saying, like, you know, you go and have a few drinks with your mates, or you go away on holiday, go to Fiji or whatever, and what do they talk about? Basically sport and what ailments they have.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
but that's why I said you go out there and have a look at, you know, people's lifestyles and how they're struggling. You know, building as in media, building a podcast or a talkback show, whatever it is. I've always gone out there and I've taken the show on the road and I've met people, and I've shaken their hands. And New Zealand's a small country. In fact, the globe is really, but New Zealand's a small country. And so if you're a good person and you do it genuinely, you'll build a genuinely loyal audience. And I was in Invercargill last week, and people yell out across the street and things, you know. So if you go and meet your audience, and you go and meet the people you're selling to, and you hear their pain, you hear their stories, you give them the time of day and you're genuine and authentic about it, I reckon in this country you'll get rewarded.
Yeah, exactly. And what you're doing with the podcast, and I think, you know, it's so great that people get to hear more than a 2 or 3 minute, you know, little
Clip.
spiel.
Well, yeah.
You know, like you actually get to hear the logic and the reasoning and the understanding of that person of why they have an idea, or
Well, you can put an argument forward, can't you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can say, and I think that's the thing, dialogue is so important, because like whether you're left or right, or it doesn't matter. We've got to actually be able to discuss ideas. And forget who's saying the ideas, it's the ideas that need to be
Well, it's usually that
addressed.
amount of time that can sink those idiots who don't know what they're talking about. So Chloe Swarbrick will come on and talk about her alternative budget. You can sink her because she doesn't know what the hell she's talking about.
Yeah, it sounds
You
good
know?
in a 30-second clip, but then you go and expand it out, and then all of a sudden it's like, you know,
Well, this was the case. We won't get too political, but then a number of those Labor politicians that got into office in the end, in opposition, they were superb because they came across every night 10 seconds saying we're going to build 100,000 homes and Kiwi build, and we'll get homes for all New Zealanders. End of clip. How are you going to do it?
yeah. There's no discussion. There's no, you know, questioning about what's going on, and I think, you know, that's what we need. We need to have
Totally.
And I think, you know,
It's rigor. It's intellectual rigor as well, you know?
exactly, and it's like putting. I guess you think about obviously like career politicians, but like, you know, there's people who I
Yuck.
guess have been in the real world,
Yeah.
you know, building stuff, you know, genuinely dealing with employing people, dealing with paying wages, dealing with all the regulations, dealing with,
Yeah.
you know, whatever changes in the climate that are going on. You know, that is you know,
The real stuff.
is like real impact in terms of consequences are real. You will fail. You
Yeah.
will die as a business if you don't deal with it. you
Well,
know?
Bill English, as finance minister, when I left Wellington and came to Auckland and was on Talkback and ran an afternoon radio show, he used to ring me when he came to Auckland and said, "Oh, can I come and have a chat with you?" So he'd come and have a chat, firstly off record to find out what's going on in Auckland, and then secondly, he'd come on with me, sit there for half an hour, take questions and talk. Why did he do that? Because he could get his ideas out there and he could argue for them and have some sort of rigor around them, you know?
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's important both for the person making the argument, but also you're obviously probably your job is to ask those questions and to like pull these things
To
bits
find
and,
out
like,
if you're
you know,
bullshitting me or not,
Find
you
out if
know?
you're bullshitting, you know? And I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's what everyone needs to hear. I mean, that's probably why Talkback Radio is so popular, because they're hearing ideas and people asking questions.
Oh, it's
and things
fantastic.
like that,
Yeah,
you know? And
exactly.
just like podcasts like this, like you get to pull things to bits.
You do, and you also get to see. I don't think we celebrate good businesses enough in New Zealand. So there's a real envy, you know, in New Zealand. If someone does something really well, they go pretty quickly. They go up there, then we shoot them down. And so, and I don't think we celebrate business. We celebrate sport.
Yes, intensely.
Yep, and we attack politicians.
Yep.
Fair.
Yep.
But with businesses and success, we sort of are suspicious about it, and so I want to change New Zealand's attitude towards that. I saw in Invercargill last week 500 businesses in a room celebrating themselves. That's brilliant,
Yeah, and it's awesome. And this is what drives innovation. It drives a better outcome for all of New Zealanders. These people are, we're exporting product to Australia now. Like, what's to say that in the next 10 years we couldn't be exporting around the globe? Like a New Zealand agricultural product that's grown here by farmers. And I think that's exciting. That's how is that going to happen without us? Without not just us, but other businesses like that. And I think
it's why we need a strong airline. It's why we need good roads. It's why we need all that infrastructure as well. People say, "Oh, what do we need that for?" We need that so your product can get to market as quickly as possible.
And I think one of the most frustrating things I think when it comes to what we do here in New Zealand, particularly from an agricultural perspective, is we grow basically the best plants and animals in the world, right?
Yeah.
And we make it very difficult. Like, say for us, for example, like we're growing a very high value crop. There's a lot of value that can be created from that crop, but because of the way that we're regulated when it comes to what we can and can't say about that product, you think of like blackcurrants, you think of what Arepa's done with, trying to promote it as a brain health product, but they're not allowed to talk about it.
But what can't you say? Let's talk about what you can't say, and so let's say it.
And advertising, so we can't mention. So if someone comes on and says this is meant I can go off anti-inflammatories and I don't have to take painkiller medication for my arthritis, we can't say that. You can never say anything about like.
But can someone say that about your product?
No.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
We can't market that.
How do we change this?
And so even if there's scientific evidence in terms of like, so there was
I don't believe this.
peer-reviewed studies around the world about the benefits of the anti-inflammatory benefits of hemp seed oil, but we're not allowed to talk about that because our product specifically hasn't had the peer-reviewed medical establishment, confirm that it can and can't say that, and it's like.
Well, why do we need them? Because they are in someone else's camp. So why on earth would they want to go and back your product?
They're not incentivized for us to allow us into that.
Yes, that's not credible.
Exactly. And I think
so. We can say what we like on this podcast, but we can.
We can exactly
because we're not governed by anything.
No,
like podcasts at this stage sit outside Broadcasting Standards Authority, Press Council, and any of that regulatory environment that I've always had to operate in as a radio host or newspaper columnist or TV reporter, whatever. So this here, at this stage, is as free as you can get. And that's why people listen to podcasts, because it's the most authentic, genuine approach now, because it's the real deal.
And it should be like, this is the conversation to be having. Like, why?
Well, this is what happens in pubs.
Yeah, this is what happens in pubs. And if you think about the logic of like, so here's an example of the regulations that we deal with. In 2018, it was illegal to sell anything other than hemp seed oil to humans. So you couldn't feed the protein, you couldn't feed the seed. It was only legal for animals, right? In 2018, they changed the law to make it legal for humans, and then they made it illegal for animals.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
So all these people who'd been feeding it to horses or pets or whatever, all of a sudden, oh no, now that's bad, and now but now if it's fit for humans, it's not able to be fit for animals. And it's like, that is so illogical. It doesn't make any sense at all. And you've got, our industry in general has really had a very, very challenging time in the last couple of years.
But it's still here because the traditional system has not worked for people.
No.
And so products like yours and companies like yours have emerged because there is a desire and a need for it, because the system has not worked.
It is a need. And I think, it's very clearly now, like everyone's aware of, the issues that most of their friends and people are facing around the country. You can see the pressure that the healthcare system's under. And then most people have just become more and more sceptical of that traditional medical establishment because of a lot of things.
Well, COVID as well.
COVID's been the main thing. And I think,
but they're suspicious of everything. See, they're suspicious of now. They don't trust the health system.
Yes.
They don't trust the media. Probably we are the two biggest victims, if you like, out of that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's important that, and this is what we're trying to do, is like, we want to open up this conversation and be like, all right, well, maybe that is not the best option. And it's not trying to say like whichever, there's a purpose for that system, and there's and it does an amazing job in so many aspects, and like no one's not saying that, but it feels like at the moment we're being blocked as a health industry here in New Zealand, as a natural health industry, because we don't have the funds or we don't have this large corporate backing to go and produce these products under a medical grade in a medical grade facility, or be able to promote our products, that we're being subdued. And the problem is that bucket of people who we're trying to reach, who instead of going into that GP bucket and filling up that healthcare system, and that just very, very few of them actually get back out again.
Yeah, exactly.
We want to be getting these people first. So that should be the number one health priority for everyone, is like, don't fall into the bucket.
I reckon they fear you getting them first, because once you get them, you'll prove to them that what you do is right and works, and they'll never go back to this other system again. They fear you. That's the problem. Hey, just we had to wrap things up. Just remind us how to get hold of you if people want your product, want to have a look at what you do and what you've got and that sort of thing. What's the website?
Yep. So go to thebrothersgreen.co. Give us a Google. Go on there. We'll have all the information there about what you're trying to deal with, whether it's joint health, gut health, sleep, or whatever. Go and I encourage everyone to go and read the reviews. That's where you're going to see everyday Kiwis and Aussies, and everyone's leaving their results there. And I encourage you, and we publish all of them. We don't cherry pick the best.
It's money back guarantee.
Money back guarantee. So try the product for 60 days. If it doesn't work, we'll give you your money back.
Yep.
And they also come with a health guide as well. So whether you're dealing with joint health or gut health, you'll get a 60-day gut health and joint health guide that will give you a bit more information about other lifestyle changes you can make.
Yes.
And
mention DG20.
DG20, 20% off.
DG20 for yourself. Okay? Make sure you've got to mention that.
Yes. 100%.
There's your bonus. All right, Brad. Hey, good to see you, mate. Now let's keep talking. Good on you, mate.
Thanks so much, Duncan.
Cheers.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.